Okay, so here we're going to calculate some more reference angles. But you can see, as you can see though, we're going to consider angles that are negative. Okay, so first let's consider negative 30 degrees. Well, again, we want our angle though that we're going to work with to be between 0 degrees and 360 degrees. So we need an angle that's coterminal. Okay, so we have negative 30 degrees. Okay, well we want to get a positive angle, so let's try adding 360 degrees. And if we do that, what we're going to get is 330 degrees. Okay, well this is good because this is an angle, 330 degrees is coterminal with negative 30 degrees. Because again, you could take one angle and add 360 degrees, which is some integer multiple of 360 degrees. We just have 1 times it, and we get this angle, 330 degrees. Okay, so let's draw 330 degrees. Like so. Okay, so what does that look like? Well, it's in standard position, so that's going to be in quadrant 4. How do I know that? Well, because this is 270 degrees, this is 0 degrees, but 0 degrees is coterminal with 360 degrees. In other words, 330 is going to look something like here. So that's what 330 degrees is. It's almost a full rotation, but not quite though. So what would the reference angle be? Well, again, the reference angle is the angle between the terminal side and the x-axis, but it has to be acute, meaning between 0 and 90 degrees. So that's going to be this. Well, how do we get this red part? Well, we're going to take the full 360 degrees, right? Full rotation, but we want to throw away 330 degrees. Then we'll be left with this. So we have 360 degrees with throwing away 330 degrees. And really, as you can see, we're going to be left with 30 degrees. So, excuse me. So because of that, the reference angle in red is 30 degrees. Okay, that's good. Okay, now let's look at negative pi over 4. Same idea, right? But for fun, let's convert this into degrees. So how do we do that? We multiply by 180 over pi, 180 degrees, over pi. So we get negative pi times 180 degrees over 4 pi. So of course the pi's cancel. We're left with negative 180 degrees over 4, and that's negative 45 degrees. So now it's really going to be just like above in that we want an angle between 0 degrees and 360 degrees. So what do? Let's try adding 360. Sometimes you might have to add 360 degrees more than once. In this case, that's not going to happen though, but sometimes that could happen. So what do we get doing? So what do we get here? We get 315 degrees. See if I have room to draw it. I'm not sure if I do, but let me try drawing it. But you might be able to see from the above though, if we go back to the previous example. But if we draw this in standard position, excuse me, I don't know what I'm doing, like so, right? 315, just like in the previous one, that's going to be in quadrant 4. Oh, excuse me, that's going to be in quadrant 4, like so, okay? Because again, just like in the previous one, 270 degrees was here, 360 degrees, which is coterminal with 0, is here. So just like in the previous one, here's 300, excuse me, let me stick with green, 315 degrees. And just like before, we want this piece. So again, we subtract. We have 360 degrees minus 315 degrees, and you get 45 degrees. So the reference angle here, the one in red, see if I can fit it in, is 45 degrees. Okay, now here we have 400 degrees. Okay, so let's find the reference angle. So here notice that we have 400 degrees, which is greater than 360 degrees. Okay, so because it's greater, let's try subtracting. So if we subtract, the angle we get will be coterminal, and in fact, it will be 40 degrees. So in this case, 400 degrees and 40 degrees, they're coterminal. Okay, so let's work with 40 degrees. So if we were to draw that, actually it's pretty easy because in standard position, 40 degrees, that's in quadrant 1, right? Because this is 0 degrees, this is 90. But if you're in quadrant 1, right, then the angle is equal to its own reference angle. That just follows from the definition. So in this case, the reference angle is 40 degrees. That's our reference angle. Okay, because again, it's the angle between the terminal side and the x-axis, but it has to be acute. Well, that forces the angle 40 degrees to be its own reference angle. So 40 degrees is the reference angle for 400 degrees. Okay, let's do one more. Here's 800 degrees. Okay, so again, that's way too big, so let's subtract. If we take this and subtract, okay, if you have to use a calculator, that's fine. That's what I'm doing now because I don't want to make a mistake. 800 minus 360 is 440 degrees. Well, as you can see, that's still too big, right? Well, since that's still too big, let's subtract again. So we have 440 degrees minus 360. That's going to be 80 degrees. So in this case, what we have is 800 degrees is coterminal with 440 degrees, which is itself coterminal with, which is itself coterminal with 80 degrees. So the angle we're going to work with is 80 degrees. But again, it's really just like the previous example, but I'll still draw it just to be consistent. 80 degrees, right? That's going to be in quadrant 1, right? Because again, up here we have 90 degrees, 0 degrees, so this is 80 degrees, okay? But again, just like in the previous example, 80 degrees being in quadrant 1 is its own reference angle. So the reference angle here is 80 degrees. So that's our reference angle here. So again, sometimes you might have to subtract more than once. Here we subtracted twice, but that's okay, that can happen.